grain grower keeps an eye on the fire he's set to his paddock. It's a scene that's been repeated many times in eastern states this year.
It's not a big return to burning stubble per se, but given the scenario this year with their very heavy stubbles, given the wet season we had last year, that's the principal reason that people are looking to get a clean start to be able to start the next crop this season.
The practice isn't confined to the eastern states either. A survey conducted in 2008 revealed nearly half of Western Australian grain growers put a match to stubble. However, as in New South Wales, the West Australians burnt no more than 10% of their crop stubble. Burning off is an accepted management practice. It's quick and cheap. It also helps clean up potential problems such as weeds, insect pests and mice, and diseases. But it does result in useful nutrients being lost.
You can basically take the grain yield of your wheat or barley crop and times it approximately by 1.5 is a rough rule of thumb. That gives you your tonnage of stubble, and then that tonnage of stubble will give you levels of nitrogen, phosphate and potash that you'll lose out of the system. So those are the key nutrients that you're losing, and the quantities will be dependent on the size of your stubble.
Using that rule of thumb on a 5 tonne to the hectare wheat crop, the stubble load would be approximately 7.5 tonne per hectare. To replace the nutrients lost in a hot burn, approximately 30 kilograms of a single super and 87 kilograms of potash would need to be applied per hectare. Incorporating stubble back into soils is what the Europeans have been doing since crop stubble burning was banned in 1993. At first, old ploughs came out from the back of sheds, but burying the problem 250 to 300 millimetres down wasn't producing the right result.
By putting it back down at that sort of depth, they weren't getting the straw to actually rot down. It was down in the anaerobic layer. And this is where more and more interest came in actually trying to keep it in the aerobic layer, the top 2 or 3 inches, to actually get some biological activity to break down the straw and increase the organisms in the actual soil structure in the topsoil.
Machines that could chop, mulch, spread and incorporate stubble into the soil were developed in Europe, and they're available here.
There's a whole range of gear, from people who are actually using their headers again to remulch the straw that they've got there. They've got a heavy stubble load, and then you move basically deeper and deeper with people who are looking to tickle it into 2 or 3 inches with stubble crunchers and that type of thing, and then moving on to some of the smaller disc machines where we're actually looking to try and incorporate it and actually consolidate it down. And often it's the logistics of the labour and how the farms run and the season that's what makes that decision. And I think it has to be looked at not only just in a 1-year practice, but in terms of a rotation.
Incorporating organic matter into soils is not the only positive to come from the use of stubble managing equipment.
There are very big benefits that come from that technique in terms of, looking at an integrated weed management approach. That gives you the ability to get straight in behind the header and germinate all your ryegrass seedlings so you can spray it off. And in a year like we've just having this year, where there's been big issues with compaction from headers travelling across wet paddocks, again that one pass of cultivation gives you the ability, if necessary, to put tines into the work to control compaction.
Adoption of this type of equipment and having a flexible approach to stubble management year to year, and even on a paddock by paddock basis, is what growers are being advised to do. But what about buying or hiring additional equipment to help manage stubbles?
The investment in specialist equipment on some of the smaller growers is probably better to use a contractor. On most of the growers who are running their own seeders and managing most of their own system, there is a place for perhaps even a smaller unit that can be used rotationally rather than a large unit to work the whole farm.
The other point growers need to consider, says Southern Farming Systems' John Winwood, is to have your stubble management strategy well prepared by the start of harvest.
The ideal scenario is then to cut nice and low with your header and a good even chop and spread out of the back of the header to the full cutter bar width. If you've done that, you've actually then got plenty of options open to you, from burning to incorporating to even sowing in with stubble retention equipment.